The glittering dining room of the Gilded Spoon fell silent. Marcus Thorne, a man who measured his worth in billions, pointed a trembling, furious finger. "You," he sneered at Damien, his waitress. "You have the audacity to talk back to me?" The owner, Julian Henderson, scrambled to his side. "She's fired! Immediately!" Damien Hayes, her apron still tied, was thrown onto the street for defending her dignity. But as she stood in the rain, she wasn't defeated. She was dialing. Because Mr. Thorne and Mr. Henderson just made the biggest mistake of their lives. They thought she was just a waitress. They didn't know who was listening. The Gilded Spoon was not a restaurant. It was a performance. Located in a restored 19th century bank building, its soaring marble columns and vaulted ceilings dripped with crystal chandeliers. It was a place where old money and new tech money collided, a hushed sanctuary of clinking silver and whispered deals. To work there, you didn't just need to be a good server. You needed to be invisible, intuitive, and above all, silent. Damien Hayes was the best. For 2 years, she had moved through the sea of linen-draped tables with an unnerving grace. She knew which clients preferred their water without ice, which politician was having an affair and required the most discreet table, and which tech baron was about to sell his company based on the vintage of champagne he ordered. Damien herself was a sharp contrast to the opulence. She was working this job, and 2 others, to slowly chip away at the mountain of debt left by her family's medical crisis. She was intelligent, observant, and possessed a spine of tempered steel, a quality she had to actively suppress every time she clocked in. Her manager, Julian Henderson, was a man hollowed out by his own ambition. He lived in terror of bad reviews and in fawning adoration of his wealthiest clients. He treated his staff as interchangeable parts in his grand, gilded machine. On this particular Tuesday night, the air was thick with tension. A major restaurant critic was rumored to be dining, and Henderson was vibrating with anxiety, stalking the kitchen pass and snapping at the staff. "Damien, table 7, he hissed. "The Thorns. Do not make a mistake." Damien's posture straightened. Marcus Thorne. Thorne wasn't just wealthy, he was infamous. A tech billionaire who had built his empire, Thorne Global, on aggressive acquisitions and ruthless efficiency. He was notoriously difficult. He treated the world as his personal property, and service staff as the dirt beneath his custom-made shoes. He was seated with 3 other men, all loud, all arrogant, all radiating the kind of power that bends a room to their will. Damien approached, her small notepad in hand. "Good evening, gentlemen. May I get you started with something to—" "Water." "Still." "No ice," Thorne snapped, not looking up from his phone. "And tell the chef the last time I was here, the A5 Wagyu was overcooked. If he makes that mistake again, I'll buy this building and turn it into a parking garage." Damien maintained a perfect, neutral expression. "My apologies, sir. I will personally ensure the chef is aware of your preference." "A5. Wagyu, medium rare?" Thorne finally looked up, his eyes cold. "Don't tell me my preference. Just don't let him ruin it." The dinner was a minefield. Thorne complained about the lighting. "It's like a morgue in here." He complained about the wine. "Did you decant this in a bathtub?" He snapped his fingers to get Damien's attention, a sound that made her jaw tighten every time. The true incident, however, began with a whisper. Ben, a new trainee who was shadowing Damien, was clearing the adjacent table. He was young, nervous, and still finding his footing. As he passed Thorne's table, his tray tipped slightly. He recovered it instantly. Not a single drop was spilled, not a single plate rattled. It was a non-event. But Marcus Thorne saw it. "You clumsy oaf," Thorne said, his voice slicing through the restaurant's quiet hum. Ben froze, his face draining of color. My apologies, sir. It won't—" "Are you stupid or just untrained?" Thorne barked. "People pay thousands of dollars to eat here, and this idiot almost dropped a rack of dirty plates on my guest." Henderson was across the room in a flash, his face a mask of practiced horror. "Mr. Thorne, I am so sorry. Ben, go to the back. Go." Ben looked like he was about to cry as he fled to the kitchen. Thorne leaned back, satisfied. "It's impossible to find good help. It's like they pull these people off the street." He gestured dismissively at the staff. "Peasants serving kings." A cold, sharp silence settled over the nearby tables. Damien, who had been standing by the service station, felt something in her snap. It wasn't just the insult to Ben. It was the casual cruelty, the absolute certainty that his wealth made him a better human being. She walked calmly to the table. Henderson, seeing her approach, looked panicked. "Damien, what are you—" "Mr. Thorne," Damien said, her voice quiet, but carrying the weight of absolute conviction. He looked up, annoyed. "What? Did you forget the water again?" "Sir," she continued, "Ben is a new trainee, and he is a hard worker. He made no mistake. He stumbled as anyone might. Your public berating of him was not only unnecessary, it was cruel." The entire dining room was now staring. Thorne's guests looked shocked. Henderson looked like he was having a heart attack. Marcus Thorne slowly placed his fork down. He stared at Damien as if she were a particularly fascinating and disgusting insect. "What?" he whispered. "Did you just say to me?" "I said," Damien repeated, her voice steady, "that you were cruel. This is a place of business, not your personal court. You do not get to humiliate our staff. We are people, not good help, for you to abuse." The silence in the restaurant was so profound you could hear the ice melting in the water glasses. Thorne's face, pale with shock, slowly turned a deep, mottled red. He pushed his chair back, the legs screeching on the marble floor. "You!" he seethed, pointing a finger at her. "You are finished! Henderson!" Julian Henderson rushed forward, wringing his hands, his face slick with sweat. "Mr. Thorne, please. She is new. She's nothing!" Thorne roared. "I spend more on my car payments than this entire restaurant makes in a night. And this waitress has the audacity to talk back to me. To me." He turned his fury on Henderson. "You will fire her, right now, in front of me, or I will make it my personal mission to ensure that by this time next year, you are managing a fast food joint in the suburbs. Am I clear?" Julian Henderson was a man caught between a rock and a hard place. The rock was Marcus Thorne, a man whose casual threats could dismantle a life's work. The hard place was his entire staff, all of whom were now frozen, watching him. He chose the rock. "Damien," Henderson said, his voice a pathetic attempt at authority. "Take off your apron. You're done." Damien didn't flinch. She simply looked at him. "You're firing me for asking a customer to treat our staff with basic human decency." "I am firing you," Henderson snapped, his panic turning to misplaced anger at her. "For insubordination, for disrespecting a valued guest, for costing me my reputation." "Your reputation?" Thorne scoffed, sipping his water. "Do it, or I'll have you both thrown out." "Damien, now!" Henderson shrieked. Slowly, deliberately, Damien reached behind her back and untied the crisp black apron. She folded it neatly and placed it on the service station. She looked at Ben, who was peering with wide, terrified eyes from the kitchen doorway. She gave him a short, sharp nod, one he didn't understand. Then she looked back at Marcus Thorne. "You are a small, hollow man, Mr. Thorne," she said, her voice no longer that of a waitress, but of an equal. And you, Julian, are a coward." She turned and walked, not to the staff exit, but straight through the main dining room. Her back was straight, her footsteps were silent on the thick carpet. She didn't look at the shocked faces of the diners. She pushed through the heavy, brass-handled doors and stepped out into the cold, rainy November night. The moment the doors closed, the sound of the restaurant vanished. Damien was left standing on the wet pavement, the smells of roasted garlic and old money replaced by damp concrete and car exhaust. She stood there for a full minute, letting the rain soak the shoulders of her white uniform shirt. A bus hissed to a stop at the corner. She pulled her phone from her pocket, her fingers moving quickly. She didn't call her mum. She didn't text her friends. She dialed a number she knew by heart. The phone rang twice. "Camilla Hayes," a sharp, professional voice answered. "Cammy," Damien said, her voice tight. "It's me." "Damien, what's wrong? You sound—" "I was fired," Damien said, stepping onto the bus and sliding into a plastic seat. "What? From the Gilded Spoon? Why? Did Henderson—" "No," Damien interrupted, watching the opulent restaurant slide away through the rain-streaked window. It was him. It was Marcus Thorne. There was a dead silence on the other end of the line. When her sister spoke again, her voice had changed. The sisterly concern was gone, replaced by the chilling precision of a predator that had just caught its scent. "Tell me everything," Camilla said. "Tell me word for word." Damien recounted the entire event, the snap of his fingers, the humiliation of Ben, the exact phrase, "peasants serving kings." "He had Henderson fire me on the spot," Damien concluded, "in the middle of the dining room for talking back." "Good," Camilla said. The word was cold steel. "Good?" Damien asked, confused. "Damien, you've been working there for 2 years, telling me how Henderson treats his staff, how he shaves overtime, how he skims from the tip pool, how he lets the VIPs treat you all like furniture. And for 6 months, I've been telling you my firm has been building a case against Thorne Global. We've been looking for a crack. We've been looking for one single arrogant mistake he couldn't bury with a non-disclosure agreement." Camilla paused. "He just made it. His public display of harassment and Henderson's illegal retaliatory firing. That's not a crack. That's a canyon." "What are you saying, Cammy?" "I'm saying," her sister replied, "that you did great. Go home. Get some sleep. I'm calling Arthur. We're filing in the morning. This isn't just wrongful termination anymore. This is leverage for everything." The offices of Sterling, Price and Kent LLP were the antithesis of the Gilded Spoon. Where the restaurant was all new money flash and gaudy crystal, the law firm was old money power. The walls were panelled in dark, century-old mahogany. The air smelled of leather, old books, and quiet, expensive victory. The firm's nameplate, visible on the 40th floor lobby, was a simple, engraved brass plaque. This was a place that didn't need to advertise. It was where corporations came to die, or to be saved. At 9:02 a.m., Damien Hayes walked in, not as a waitress, but as a client. She was dressed in a simple, sharp black suit that her sister had couriered to her apartment an hour earlier. She was shown into a vast corner office overlooking the entire city. Camilla was there, already nursing a coffee, a stack of files on her desk. With her was a man in his late 60s, with piercing blue eyes and a perfectly tailored suit. This was Arthur Sterling, the firm's senior partner. A legal legend, he was the Sterling in the firm's name. "Ms. Hayes," Arthur said, rising to shake her hand. His grip was firm. "Your sister has told me a great deal about your composure. After last night, I see she undersold it. Please, sit." Damien sat, feeling the tension of the last 12 hours coiled in her stomach. "Let's not waste time," Arthur said, getting straight to the point. "Camilla, brief us." Camilla stood and turned to a large whiteboard, her demeanor all business. "We have 2 primary targets, Julian Henderson, Henderson Hospitality, and Marcus Thorne, Thorne Global. We will treat them as 2 separate fronts in the same war." She wrote Henderson on the board. "First, the low-hanging fruit, Damien's firing. It's a textbook case of wrongful termination and retaliation. She was fired for defending a co-worker from verbal abuse, a protected activity. That's simple. We'll ask for a year's salary and damages. He'll try to fight it. He'll lose." She tapped the board. "But that's not the real play. Damien, you mentioned Ben, and you mentioned the tips." "Henderson's been skimming for years," Damien confirmed. "He pools all electronic tips, then redistributes them. But the house always takes a 30% administrative fee, which is illegal. And cash tips left on tables? He demands they be turned in and reallocated. We've all known it, but no one could afford to get fired for questioning it." "Excellent," Camilla smiled. "I spoke to Ben last night after you called. He's terrified, but he's angry. He's ready to be the lead plaintiff. So, we are not just filing for Damien. We are filing a class action lawsuit on behalf of the entire past and present staff of the Gilded Spoon for systematic wage theft." Damien's eyes widened. "That's millions." "It is," Arthur Sterling confirmed, steepling his fingers. "Mr. Henderson's obsession with one billionaire has just jeopardized his entire business. He's a small fish. We'll bankrupt him by lunch." Camilla then wrote Thorne on the board and circled it. "Now," she said, "the dragon." "I've been leading the litigation team against Thorne Global for 8 months, Camilla explained to Damien. "They're a predatory company that uses illegal non-compete clauses to trap employees and buy out competitors. But Thorne himself is insulated. He's insulated by a wall of lawyers and, more importantly, by a series of sealed settlements. Any time he's been accused of harassment, abuse, or financial misconduct, he pays the victim millions in exchange for a rock-solid, permanent NDA, non-disclosure agreement." "So we can't touch him, right?" Damien asked. "Ah," Arthur Sterling said, a thin smile playing on his lips. "This is where it becomes beautiful. We represent a woman from a 2023 case, Jane Doe, versus Thorne Global. Thorne verbally assaulted her in a board meeting, almost identically to how he treated you. He called her a secretary playing dress-up and had her fired." Camilla took over. "We had to settle. But we baked something into that settlement, a character clause. Thorne and his company agreed, under penalty of a $50 million fine, that he would not engage in any public act of defamation, harassment, or behavior that would bring his own character into disrepute. It was a time bomb." Damien's breath hitched. "Last night, the restaurant, it was public." "It was very public," Camilla said. "You're a sworn witness. Ben is a sworn witness. And according to the maitre d', at least 3 tables filmed the incident on their phones. His peasant-serving King's line is about to go viral. Marcus Thorne," Arthur Sterling concluded, in his arrogance, just breached his own multi-million-dollar settlement. By firing you, Henderson created a hostile witness. By abusing you, Thorne created a legal trigger. "So what are the papers?" Damien asked. "Not papers. Paper," Camilla corrected. "Plural. We are filing 4 separate motions." She listed them on her fingers. 1. A wrongful termination suit, Hayes vs. Henderson Hospitality. 2. A class action suit, Bennington et al. Vs. Henderson Hospitality, for wage theft. 3. A personal injury and harassment suit, Hayes vs. Marcus Thorne, for intentional infliction of emotional distress. 4. A notice of breach of contract, Jane Doe versus Thorne Global, petitioning the court to unseal the 2023 settlement and enforce the $50 million penalty clause, using Damien's affidavit as the primary evidence. "Mr. Henderson," Arthur said, "will be served first. He's the weakest link. We'll offer him a deal. Testify against Thorne, turn over his security footage, and we'll be lenient in the class action. He'll betray Thorne in a heartbeat to save himself." "Go get him, Cammy," Damien said. Camilla picked up a thick, ribbon-bound stack of documents from her desk. "I'll be back by lunch." The lunch rush at the Gilded Spoon was in full swing. Julian Henderson was in a foul mood. The previous night's incident had rattled him. He had spent the morning fielding calls from 2 diners who were appalled at the scene. He'd lost Damien, his best waitress, and the rest of the staff was treating him with a silent, icy contempt. But when he saw a new reservation for Mr. Arthur Sterling pop up, his mood lifted. Sterling, Price, and Kent. That was the big leagues. If he could impress that firm, the Thorne incident would be forgotten. He was therefore surprised when, at 12:30 p.m., a woman who was clearly not Arthur Sterling walked in. She was tall, in her early 30s, and wore a navy blue suit that was so perfectly tailored it probably cost more than his car. She radiated an intimidating, expensive silence. "Good afternoon," Henderson said, pasting on his host's smile. "May I help you?" "I'm here to see Julian Henderson," the woman said. Her voice was polite but frigid. "I am Mr. Henderson. Do you have a reservation?" "No," the woman replied. She placed a sleek leather briefcase on the host stand and clicked it open. "I have this." She pulled out a thick, legal-sized stack of documents, bound in blue. "Mr. Henderson," she said, her voice now loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. "My name is Camilla Hayes, partner at Sterling, Price and Kent. You have been served." She slid the documents across the podium. Henderson's smile faltered. He looked at the name on the cover sheet, and his blood ran cold. "Hayes. Hayes?" he stammered. "Like Damien Hayes?" "My sister," Camilla said flatly. Henderson let out a short, panicked laugh. "Your sister? You've got to be kidding me! A waitress is suing me. For what? Hurt feelings? Get out of my restaurant." He made to push the documents back, but Camilla placed her hand firmly on top of them. "I wouldn't do that, Mr. Henderson. You've been served. As of this moment, you are legally obligated to retain all documents, emails, and video surveillance related to this case. If you delete that footage from last night, that's spoliation of evidence, and I will have you in front of a judge for sanctions by 3 p.m. Henderson's face went white. "Video footage? You have 21 days to respond to this filing," Camilla continued, "though I suspect you'll want to respond sooner, especially regarding Count 2. "Count 2, he whispered, his hands trembling as he opened the cover. He read the first page. Case 1, Hayes v. Henderson Hospitality. Charge, wrongful termination, retaliatory firing. He almost scoffed. He could fight that. Then he turned the page. Case 2, Bennington et al. V. Henderson Hospitality. Charge, class action for systematic wage theft and violation of the Fair Labor Standards Act. His legs gave out. He grabbed the host stand for support. He saw Ben's name. He saw the names of 10 other employees, past and present. He saw figures. He saw dates. How did you required your staff to use a specific, proprietary payroll app, didn't you? Camilla said. My firm's forensic accounting team cracked it in an hour. You've been siphoning 30% of their tips for 3 years. We're petitioning to have your assets frozen, pending discovery. You can't, he whimpered. This is slander." "It's arithmetic," Camilla said. "And it gets worse." She pointed to the third document in the stack. Case 3, Hayes v. Henderson and Thorne. Charge: conspiracy to enable a hostile work environment and public harassment. "You'll notice," Camilla said, "you are now a co-defendant with Marcus Thorne. You actively participated in the public humiliation of my sister and your staff. You enabled Mr. Thorne's abusive behavior. You are liable." Henderson was hyperventilating. The entire restaurant was watching. "Now," Camilla said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "we have a fourth filing, but it's not for you. It's for Mr. Thorne. It's a petition to unseal a prior settlement for $50 million, which he breached last night. Your testimony and your security footage are key to that petition." She leaned in closer. "Right now, Mr. Henderson, you are tied to a sinking ship, and Marcus Thorne is the anchor. But I'm offering you a life raft. You can go down with him, or you can cooperate." "What? What do you want?" Henderson stuttered. "I want a certified copy of last night's security footage, unedited, in 1 hour. I want a full list of every employee you've underpaid since 2021. And I want a sworn affidavit from you, detailing exactly what Mr. Thorne said and the threats he made to you. And if I do that? If you do that," Camilla said, "we will consider focusing the wage theft suit on your corporation rather than you, personally. We might be convinced that you were acting under duress from Mr. Thorne." She slid a business card onto the stack of papers. "My office is 3 blocks away. I'll expect you in 1 hour." Camilla Hayes turned, her heels clicking on the marble, and walked out of the Gilded Spoon, leaving Julian Henderson to stare at the ruins of his life. Marcus Thorne was in a meeting at the headquarters of Thorne Global, a sleek, black glass tower that stabbed at the sky. He was in the middle of a hostile takeover of a rival tech firm. He hadn't thought about the Waitress incident in 12 hours. It was, to him, utterly insignificant. That changed when his personal lawyer, a stern man named Gregory Vance, burst into the boardroom. An unprecedented interruption. "Marcus," Vance said, his voice grim, "we have a problem." "I'm busy, Greg. Handle it." "You are the problem. You've been served." Vance threw a set of documents on the $100,000 conference table. It wasn't the Waitress's harassment suit. Vance could have buried that. It was the other one, the one from Sterling, Price and Kent. Notice of breach, Jane Doe v. Thorne Global. Thorne read the document, and his infamous temper flared. "This is garbage. That case is sealed. It's from 2023. They can't do this." "They can," Vance said, "if you breach the character clause. And according to this affidavit from a Ms. Damian Hayes and a supporting statement from a Mr. Julian Henderson, you did." Henderson? That spineless worm. He flipped. He provided them with 4K security footage of you, Marcus, from 3 different angles. And audio. Crystal clear audio of you calling your waitress a peasant and threatening the owner. It's catastrophic. "So pay them," Thorne roared. "Pay the $50 million penalty. Who cares? It's a rounding error." "You don't understand," Vance said, rubbing his temples. "The $50 million is just the fine. The penalty for breaching the settlement is that the 2023 case is now unsealed. All of it." Thorne's face went slack. "The depositions?" he whispered. "All of them," Vance confirmed. "Your financial records, the evidence of you hiding assets, the other harassment claims. The Doe case was the linchpin holding 5 other lawsuits at bay. Sterling, Price and Kent just pulled the pin. This isn't a lawsuit, Marcus. It's a decapitation. Within 2 hours, the story was everywhere. It started on tech blogs, then hit the mainstream financial news. Billionaire Marcus Thorne sued for $50 million breach. But it was the footage, leaked by an anonymous source, Camilla's office, that went viral. The video was devastating. It showed a man worth $30 billion screaming at a young waitress, his face contorted in rage. The phrase, "peasants serving kings," became a national headline. Thorne Global stock, which was built on a carefully crafted image of ruthless, modern genius, began to tumble. By 4:04 p.m., it was down 10%. By the next morning's opening bell, it had collapsed by 35%. The board of directors, who had tolerated Thorne's behavior when it was a private secret, could not tolerate it when it was a public liability. They called an emergency meeting. Marcus Thorne, the man who thought he could buy the building, was unceremoniously voted out of his own company. He was forced to resign as CEO, effective immediately, to pursue other interests. His downfall was total, public, and self-inflicted, all because he couldn't stand being talked back to. The day after the lawsuits were filed and the video was leaked was not a day. It was a detonation. For Marcus Thorne, the morning began with his personal stock ticker glowing with a color he despised, red, a deep, hemorrhaging, catastrophic red. He was in his glass-walled penthouse, a fortress 80 floors above the city, but the walls suddenly felt very, very thin. He had his personal chef make his usual kale and turmeric smoothie, but he hurled the glass against the wall before it was half empty. "Get me Vance," he had screamed into his phone at 7:01 a.m. "I'm already on the line, Marcus," Gregory Vance's voice replied, devoid of its usual placating tone. It was clipped, scared. "It's bad." "Bad? Bad is a bad quarter. This is a PR hiccup. I want a statement. I want us to buy the news network that's running the clip. I want you to sue that waitress into oblivion for leaking it." "We can't," Vance said, his voice flat. "It wasn't her. It was leaked by an anonymous source, which means it's now news. Every major outlet has it, and it's not the clip that's the problem." "Then what is it?" Thorne roared. "It's the breach. Marcus, the character clause. From the 2023 Doe case. It's a legal trigger. Sterling, Price, and Kent have successfully petitioned the court for an emergency hearing. They're arguing the breach is so egregious that the entire 2023 settlement is void. Not just the $50 million fine. The seal." Thorne stopped pacing. "The seal." He whispered it. "No. Yes. They want everything unsealed. The depositions, the internal audits, the other 5 settlements we bundled into that one." Thorne Global, the massive tech conglomerate, was built on a foundation of intellectual property, aggressive acquisitions, and, as Thorne well knew, a series of very dark, very deep holes where he had buried his mistakes. The Doe case was the plug that held them all. At 9:30 a.m. the market opened. Thorne Global, TRNGL, nosedived. At 10:00 a.m. the judge ruled in favor of Sterling, Price, and Kent. The Doe case was unsealed. By 10:01 a.m. the financial press had the details. Not just harassment, insider trading, falsified revenue reports, predatory non-competes. It was an avalanche. At 2:00 p.m., the emergency board of directors meeting was convened. Thorne walked in, ready for a fight, ready to threaten and bully his way through, as he always had. But the long obsidian table was silent. The 8 directors didn't look angry. They looked like surgeons ready to amputate. "Marcus," the lead director, a man named Anderson, said, "you've been a titan, a visionary. But this is a self-inflicted wound we cannot staunch." "Don't be dramatic, Anderson," Thorne snapped. "This is a waitress, a bug." "It's not the waitress, Marcus," Anderson said, sliding a single sheet of paper across the table. "It's the evidence. The unsealed Doe documents are now the primary exhibit in 3 separate SEC investigations, all opened in the last hour. The company is under federal scrutiny. Because you couldn't hold your temper. Because of a bug. Thorne looked at the paper. It was his resignation. You're firing me? He scoffed. I am this company. No, Anderson said, his voice cold as steel. You were. As of this morning, you are a 35% liability. The board has voted. You will sign this, accept the severance package, and walk away. Or you will be removed by security for cause. You will lose your golden parachute, and we will personally assist the SEC in their investigation of your personal trading. Thorne looked at the faces around the table. Not one would meet his eye. They were his appointees, his yes-men, his puppets, and the strings had been cut. He was no longer Marcus Thorne, the billionaire. He was just a man in a very expensive suit, trapped in a room he used to own. He signed the paper. His downfall wasn't a battle. It was a transaction. While the Titan was falling, the coward was disintegrating. At the Gilded Spoon, Julian Henderson arrived at 5:00 p.m. for the pre-shift briefing. He was trying to pretend it was a normal day, but the restaurant was dead silent. The phones, which should have been ringing with last-minute reservations, were quiet. Then he looked at the reservation system. Every single booking for the next month. Cancelled. Ben, he called out, his voice echoing in the vast, empty dining room. Damien? Oh, right. The staff room door opened, but it wasn't just one person. It was all of them. Ben, no longer in his trainee's jacket, stood at the front. Behind him were the other waiters, the busboys, the sommeliers, the line cooks, their arms crossed, their faces grim. What is this? Henderson stammered. A mutiny? Get to your stations. No, Ben said, his voice calm and clear, carrying the weight of 2 years of suppressed rage. We're just here to pick up our last paychecks. Paychecks? It's the middle of the week. And you owe us for 3 years of stolen tips, Ben said. He stepped aside, and one of the line cooks, a massive man named Anton, stepped forward and taped a document to the heavy brass door. It was a copy of the class action lawsuit. He taped it right over the restaurant's prized Michelin star. You're all fired, Henderson shrieked, his panic finally boiling over. You can't fire people who quit, Julian, Ben said. And you can't run a restaurant with no staff. You enabled him. You let him call us peasants in our own house. You stole from us to impress men like him. One by one, the staff walked past him, dropping their folded aprons on the floor at his feet. They didn't say a word. The pile grew at his ankles, a funeral shroud for his career. They walked out the front door, leaving Henderson alone in the cavernous, silent room. The last sound he heard was Ben on the phone with the city's top restaurant critic. Yes, I'm confirming it. The Gilded Spoon is closed, effective immediately, due to a federal investigation into wage theft. Henderson sank into the very chair Marcus Thorne had occupied. He was a small man, in a big, empty, and soon-to-be bankrupt restaurant. He was ruined. In the 40th floor offices of Sterling, Price and Kent, Damien and Camilla were watching the financial news report on Thorne's resignation. The Chiron read, Titan tumbles. It's done, Damien said, her voice quiet. She felt not happy, not sad. She just felt a profound, heavy sense of gravity. His part is done, Camilla said, clicking off the TV. Now for yours. There was a knock on the door. Arthur Sterling entered, followed by a pale, exhausted-looking Gregory Vance, Thorne's lawyer. Mr. Vance, Arthur said, thank you for coming. I assume you're here to discuss a settlement for Ms. Hayes's personal harassment suit. Vance slumped into a leather chair. He was a defeated man. My former client is facing a tidal wave of litigation. The unsealed Doe case. It's a bloodbath. He's willing to make this, his smallest problem, go away, provided it goes away quietly. He slid a checkbook-sized folder across the desk. 7 figures. He's offering $1 million. A full ironclad NDA is, of course, required. Camilla started to speak. 1 million is an insult. But Damien, who had been silent, held up her hand. Mr. Vance, she said. The lawyer looked up at her, seeing her properly for the first time, not as a waitress, but as the woman who had just dismantled his client's life. Your client, Damien said, her voice as calm as the penthouse she had never seen, is a man who measures his entire life in numbers. So let's talk numbers. He called me a peasant. He called my friend an oaf. He humiliated me. He had me fired. And in doing so, he tripped a wire that is now costing him his company, his reputation, and, from what I'm seeing, about $30 billion. She slid the folder back. You're not here to buy my silence, Mr. Vance. You're here because my suit is public, and it's embarrassing, and it's the one thing you can still control. You're here to buy a bandage for a mortal wound, and I have the only bandage in town. Vance swallowed. What do you want? He's a billionaire. 1 million is what he finds in his couch cushions. It's an insult. It's a continuation of the belief that I'm cheap, that I'm good help you can buy off. Damien leaned forward. My family has medical debt that I've been working 3 jobs to pay off. I was 1 semester away from finishing my law degree when I had to drop out. I want that, and my time, and my dignity back. She looked at Camilla, then at Arthur, then back at Vance. $10 million, Vance choked. That's obscene. That's extortion. No, Damien said, her voice dropping. Extortion is what he did to Julian Henderson. Fire her, or I'll ruin you. This is a business transaction. My dignity is worth 10 million. My signature on your NDA is worth 10 million. That is the price. Pay it, and I sign. Don't, and I'll see you in court. And Camilla, here, will personally cross-examine Mr. Thorne on the stand about every single unsealed document. Your choice. Camilla and Arthur were both silent, watching. Vance stared at her. He saw no room for negotiation. He saw no fear. He saw a mirror of the same ruthless certainty that had made Marcus Thorne, now being used to destroy him. He stood up, his hand trembling. You'll have the money in escrow by morning, and the NDA. God help you, you'll never speak his name again. I won't have to, Damien said, standing to meet his gaze. I'll be too busy. As Vance left the room, Arthur Sterling let out a low whistle. In 30 years, I've never seen a negotiation handled with such precision. Camilla just beamed, pulling her sister into a fierce hug. Law school, Camilla whispered, is paid for. No, Damien said, looking out the window at the city below. It's just the beginning. 2 years later, the building that had once housed the Gilded Spoon was unrecognizable. The opulent, cold marble and the suffocating crystal chandeliers were gone. In their place, warm, reclaimed wood, exposed brick, and soft amber-colored lighting filled the room. The hushed, terrified silence had been replaced by the loud, confident hum of conversation, laughter, and the clatter of a kitchen working in harmony. The name, etched not in gold, but burned into a piece of polished driftwood above the bar, read, The Sovereign. It was the most successful and most difficult to book restaurant in the city, not because it catered to billionaires, but because it was the first high-end, worker-owned cooperative. Every employee, from the dishwasher to the general manager, was a part owner. They shared the responsibilities, and more importantly, they shared 100% of the profits. Damien Hayes sat at a small table near the open-air kitchen, sipping a glass of wine. She was here, as she was every Tuesday, but tonight was special. "I still can't believe you're on the menu," Damien said, tapping the thick cardstock. Ben, no longer the terrified, pale trainee, laughed. He wore a simple, clean apron over a button-down shirt, his face filled out, his eyes bright with the lack of fear. "The Hayes Filet. It's our top seller. We call it the dish best served bold." "You're a menace," Damien smiled. "I'm a manager," he corrected her. "And you, as of 5 p.m. tomorrow, are officially Damien Hayes, Esquire. You're graduating. After that, I'll have to start charging you for this table." "You wouldn't dare." Damien looked around the room, a deep sense of peace settling over her. After the settlements, she had been faced with a choice. The $10 million NDA from Thorne's lawyers had been a silent, heavy weight. It meant she could never publicly speak about the specifics of his abuse again. But it hadn't prevented her from using the money. She had paid off her family's debts, then immediately re-enrolled in the law program she'd been forced to drop. The rest of the money, a staggering amount, sat in a trust, waiting. "Is Cammy meeting us?" Ben asked, pouring himself a small glass of water. "She's running late. She's in court. Apparently, some venture capital firm thought it was a good idea to try and restructure their intern program to be 100% unpaid. My sister is currently, and I quote, setting them on fire with discovery motions." "She's a terrifying person," Ben said with deep admiration. "We wouldn't be here without her. Or you." "We wouldn't be here without you, Ben," Damien said firmly. "I just kicked the door. You're the one who led 30 people through it." After Henderson's bankruptcy, the restaurant's assets had been liquidated. Damien, using a portion of her settlement, had formed an anonymous LLC to buy the building and its contents outright at auction. She had then turned to the staff, laid off and angry, and made them a proposal. "I'll provide the building. You provide the heart. We split the ownership, every last one of you." The Sovereign was born from that deal. Ben, whose hidden talent for organization and numbers had been suppressed by Henderson, had stepped up to run it. "Well," Ben said, raising his glass, "to tomorrow. The final step." Damien raised her glass, but as she did, the jovial atmosphere in the restaurant suddenly went still. It was a different kind of silence than the one from the Gilded Spoon. It wasn't fear. It was a sudden, confused pause. Ben's head snapped toward the front door. His smile vanished, replaced by a cold, hard mask Damien hadn't seen since the old days. "Ben," she asked, "what is it?" "Security," Ben said, speaking quietly into the small mic on his lapel. "I've got eyes on the door. Do not let him in." Damien turned. Standing in the entryway, looking lost and utterly broken, was Julian Henderson. He was a ghost. The 2 years had not been kind. His once preening, custom-tailored suits were gone, replaced by a wrinkled, off-the-rack pinstripe that hung loosely on his frame. His hair was thin and grey, his face a roadmap of anxiety and failure. He looked like a man who hadn't had a full meal in a week. The new hostess, a young woman who had never worked for him, was looking at him with polite confusion. "Sir, I'm sorry. We're fully booked for the next 6 months. Do you have a reservation?" "No," Henderson stammered, his eyes darting around the room, seeing the faces of the staff, his old staff, staring at him with open contempt. I need to see Damien Hayes. I was told she comes here." Ben was already on his feet, moving toward the door. "Julian," he said, his voice a low growl. Henderson flinched, taking a step back. Ben, please," I just need to talk to her. 5 minutes. You have absolutely nothing to say that anyone here wants to hear, Ben said. You're trespassing. Leave. I'm not here to cause trouble. Henderson's voice rose, cracking with desperation. I'm here to ask for help. This gave Damien pause. She stood up from her table and walked slowly toward the front. The entire restaurant was watching. Damien, Ben said, not taking his eyes off Henderson. You don't have to do this. I'll have him removed. It's okay, Ben, Damien said quietly. She looked at the man who had, in a moment of pure cowardice, thrown her to the wolves. He wouldn't meet her eyes. Help? Damien asked, her voice neutral. They blacklisted me, Henderson whispered, wringing his hands. After the bankruptcy, after my testimony against Thorne. No one will hire me. No one. Not even a fast food joint. The Henderson name is poison. I've lost everything. My house. My everything. You did that, Julian, Ben countered. You stole from us for years. I know I did, Henderson cried, and to Damien's shock, tears began to well in his eyes. But I paid. The courts took everything. I testified. I did what your sister asked. I helped put Thorne away. You saved yourself, Damien corrected him, her voice still quiet, but sharp as glass. You were a co-defendant, Julian. You flipped to avoid a prison sentence for wage theft. Let's not rewrite history. But what am I supposed to do? He pleaded, finally looking at her. His eyes were frantic. I'm broke. I have no skills. This is all I know. I heard you were starting some fund for people in the industry, a justice thing. Damien stared at him. The audacity of the man was staggering. He was coming to her, the woman he had fired and humiliated, to ask for a handout from the very justice she was building. He's asking you for money, Ben said, disgusted. Just then, the door opened again. This time it was Camilla, brushing rainwater off her trench coat. She took in the scene in half a second. Damien, Ben, and the trembling form of Julian Henderson. Well, hell, Camilla muttered. I leave you alone for one night. She strode forward. Mr. Henderson, I believe our last conversation was at your bankruptcy deposition. I'm surprised you have the nerve to be here. Ms. Hayes, Henderson said, turning to her, please, I'm just asking for a little help, a little compassion. You won. You won everything. Can't you show a little mercy? Camilla looked at Damien, her expression unreadable. This was Damien's restaurant, Damien's past. She wouldn't interfere. Damien looked at Julian Henderson. She saw the man who had screamed at her. Take off your apron, you're done. She saw the man who had allowed Marcus Thorne to call his staff peasants. But she also saw something else. She saw a hollowed-out shell, a man who had tied his entire identity to a billionaire's approval and had been destroyed when that approval was withdrawn. He was collateral damage. He was, in his own pathetic way, another one of Thorne's victims, a victim of his own weakness. This, she realized, was her first test. Not as a lawyer, but as the person she was about to become. Was her new initiative about revenge, or was it about justice? And what did justice look like for a man like this? I'm not going to give you any money, Julian, Damien said. Henderson's face fell. Oh, my initiative, the one you heard about, is for people who are being exploited. People who are powerless. You are not powerless, Julian. You are just broke. There's a difference. Damien, Ben started, but she held up her hand. However, she continued, you said you were blacklisted. You said no one will hire you because of the scandal. That sounds like a potential case for defamation or tortious interference. You're claiming that your cooperation in a federal case has led to you being unemployable. Henderson looked confused. I guess. Damien reached into a briefcase, which was sitting at her table. She pulled out a small, simple business card. It was not her own. "This is Arthur Sterling's firm," she said, handing the card to Henderson. "Not my sister's division. This is their civil litigation department. Tell them Damien Hayes sent you. Say that you believe you have a case against the Restaurant Association for blacklisting you." Henderson took the card, his hand trembling. You're helping me?" "After. Don't misunderstand me," Damien said, her voice turning to ice. "I am not helping you. I will never forgive you. You are a coward and you are a thief. But the law, the real law, is for everyone. It's for the victims, and it's for the cowards. It's a system, and I believe in the system." She looked at him. "You will not come here again. You will not contact me, or Ben, or anyone on this staff. We are done. Your fight is with them now." Henderson stared at the card, then at her, a strange, uncomprehending look on his face. He nodded once, and then turned and walked out into the rain. Ben let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for 2 years. I don't know if I could have done that. I would have just thrown him out." Camilla put an arm around Damien's shoulders. "That," she said, her voice thick with pride, "is the difference between a brawler and a lawyer. You didn't give him forgiveness. You gave him due process. And in doing so, you've just proven you're going to be 1,000 times more terrifying than I am." Damien smiled, the tension breaking. "Let's go eat. I have a graduation tomorrow." The next day, Damien Hayes stood on the steps of the city courthouse. The rain had cleared. It was a bright, cold November afternoon, almost 3 years to the day since she had been thrown out of the Gilded Spoon. This time, she wasn't in a damp uniform. She was in a dark, sharp suit. Behind her, a simple banner read, "The Hayes Justice Initiative for Labor Rights." A podium was set up. News crews, alerted by a press release from Sterling, Price and Kent, had gathered. In the small crowd, she saw Ben and the entire senior staff of the Sovereign, all in their street clothes, all cheering. Camilla and Arthur Sterling stood to her left. A reporter from the city's main paper called out, "Ms. Hayes, you've been famously silent since the Thorne settlement. Why come forward now?" "Because today my graduation is official," Damien said, approaching the microphones. "And my NDA, while still in effect regarding Mr. Thorne's personal conduct, does not prevent me from using my experience to fuel my new career." "What's your comment on Marcus Thorne?" another reporter shouted. "He's rumored to be living in seclusion, having lost over 90% of his net worth." Damien paused, thinking of the man who had tried to ruin her. "Marcus Thorne was a symptom," she said, her voice clear and strong, carrying over the square. "He was a symptom of a system that believes wealth is a substitute for character, and that power gives you the right to dehumanize those you deem beneath you. Mr. Thorne's current status is irrelevant. My focus is on the disease." She looked directly into the cameras. "My name is Damien Hayes," she began. 3 years ago, I was fired from my job as a waitress for telling a billionaire that he had no right to abuse my co-worker. I was told I was replaceable. I was called a peasant. I was told I was nothing. The powerful and the wealthy," she continued, "have relied for too long on the belief that we are too tired, too poor, or too scared to fight back. They build their empires on our silence. They count on us not knowing our rights. They count on us being too afraid of the Julian Hendersons of the world to stand up to the Marcus Thornes." Today, that ends. The Hayes Justice Initiative, funded by my own settlement and partnered with the finest legal minds in this city, she gestured to Arthur and Camilla, is officially open. We are here to provide free, world-class legal counsel to any service worker, hospitality employee, or gig economy worker who has faced wage theft, illegal termination, or workplace harassment. She leaned forward, her eyes finding Ben in the crowd. They thought I was just a waitress. They were right. I was a waitress. I've been a busser, a hostess, and a line cook. I am one of you, and we are here to remind them of a simple, forgotten truth. The foundation of this city is not built in the boardrooms. It is built by the hands that serve, the hands that clean, and the hands that cook. We are not the help. We are the sovereign, and we are done being silent. And that's the story of how a single moment of courage brought two powerful men to their knees. Damien proved that your job title doesn't define your worth, and that no one is too small to demand respect. The next time you see someone in the service industry, remember the steel spine it takes to do that job, and the power of standing up for what's right. Did this story of justice inspire you? If you loved Damien's incredible twist of fate, please show your support by hitting that like button. It really helps our channel grow. Don't forget to share this video with someone who needs to hear that the little guy can win. And if you want more stories of dramatic revenge and satisfying justice, make sure you subscribe to our channel and ring that notification bell. We have new stories coming every week, and you won't want to miss what happens next.